My name is Lauren Mitchell. I grew up in a quiet suburb just outside Dallas, Texas, in a neat little house with a perfectly manicured lawn. I was always the quiet one, the dreamer. The daughter who worked hard, got good grades, and tried to make something of herself. But in my family, and later in my marriage, I was always seen as less than. I was the one with the impractical ideas, the one who needed to be more realistic. They never really believed in me, not until the day my work, the patent I built in silence and shame, flipped my entire world upside down. Before we dive in, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment below telling me, where in the world are you watching from? I love seeing how far this story travels. It all started on a Tuesday. The air was thick and humid, the kind of Texas afternoon where you can feel the heat settling in your bones. I was sitting at my desk staring at a computer screen when the email landed in my inbox. The subject line was bland, organizational update. Inside, the words were corporate jargon, cold and efficient. Our department was being restructured. My position had been eliminated. Just like that, a decade of my professional life was erased with a few sterile sentences. I packed my belongings in a cardboard box, a framed photo, a coffee mug, a few wilting desk plants. The walk to my car felt like a mile. Each step was heavy, filled with a rising dread. It wasn't just about losing a paycheck. It was the sting of being deemed non-essential, redundant. The drive home was a blur. All I could think about was how I would tell Mark, my husband. We'd been married for 7 years, and for most of them, I had felt like I was treading water, trying to keep up with his expectations. He was a successful sales manager, confident and pragmatic. He saw the world in black and white, in profits and losses. My world, filled with ideas and possibilities, was a gray area he found irritating. I walked into the kitchen that evening, the cardboard box clutched in my arms like a shield. The weight of it all was pressing down on me, making it hard to breathe. Mark was at the kitchen island, scrolling through his phone, a glass of whiskey sweating beside his hand. He didn't look up when I came in. "Hey," I said, my voice barely a whisper. He grunted in response, his eyes still glued to the screen. I set the box down on the floor. The sound made him finally look up, his brow furrowed in annoyance. "What's that?" I took a deep breath. "I lost my job today." He stared at me for a long moment. His expression was completely flat. There was no flicker of sympathy, no softening of his eyes, no offer of comfort, just a cold, hard assessment. He took a slow sip of his whiskey, set the glass down with a deliberate click, and then he sneered. It was a faint twist of his lips, an expression I'd come to know meant contempt. "Well, that figures," he said, his voice dripping with condescension. "You were never really that good at anything, were you? Worthless." The word hung in the air between us, a toxic cloud that filled the room. Worthless. It wasn't shouted. It was stated as a fact, a simple truth he had finally decided to voice. The word didn't just hurt, it felt like a physical blow. It burrowed under my skin, found a home in the hollow space in my chest, and started to fester. It was 1,000 times more painful than the rejection letter from work. The company had called my position redundant. My husband had called me worthless. That night, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. Mark snored softly beside me, completely oblivious to the earthquake his words had caused inside of me. I replayed the scene in my mind. His cold eyes, the sneer, the casual cruelty of that single word. Was he right? Had I just been fooling myself all these years, pretending to be competent, pretending to have value? The doubt was a poison, seeping into every corner of my mind. The next weekend was my sister Susan's annual barbecue. The thought of going filled me with an anxious dread, but not going would mean endless questions. I convinced myself that maybe, just maybe, I would find some support. A hug from my mom, a kind word from my dad, a listening ear. I should have known better. As soon as I walked into the backyard, I felt the shift. The conversations would dip to a whisper as I approached, then resume with forced cheerfulness. I caught snippets. "She's unemployed now," I heard my Aunt Carol say to a cousin, her voice laced with a thick, syrupy pity that felt more like an insult. I felt like a specimen under a microscope, my failure on full display for everyone to dissect. My dad cornered me by the grill, a spatula in one hand and a concerned frown etched on his face. "Lauren, honey," he began, patting my arm in that awkward way he had. "I was talking to Mark. This job thing, it's a tough break, but maybe it's for the best." I looked at him, confused. "How is it for the best, Dad?" "Well," he continued, avoiding my eyes, "you've always been chasing these big, complicated ideas. It's a lot of pressure. Why not just settle down now? Find a nice clerical job, something stable with good hours, less stress." He was trying to be helpful, I knew, but his words felt like another nail in my coffin. He wasn't telling me to aim higher. He was telling me to give up, to shrink myself down to fit into a smaller, safer box. Susan, my older sister, was worse. She had always been the golden child, the pretty one, the popular one, the one who married a successful lawyer and had 2 perfect children. She treated my ambitions as a cute but foolish hobby. She drifted over to me, a smirk playing on her lips. "Oh, look, Lauren's here, taking a break from the job hunt," she said, her voice loud enough for everyone nearby to hear. "Good thing Mark's got such a steady income, right? He can carry the family for a while." She laughed, a sharp, brittle sound that grated on my nerves. She wasn't just stating a fact. She was marking her territory, reminding me of my new dependent status. My mother just hovered in the background, offering me a plate of potato salad with a tight, worried smile. She never said a word. Her silence was a form of agreement, a quiet confirmation that I was, indeed, the family disappointment. I drove home from that barbecue with a lump in my throat, feeling more alone than ever. My family didn't see me as a person going through a hard time. They saw me as a problem that needed to be managed. In the weeks that followed, my world grew smaller. Friends I thought were close started to pull away. A lunch date would be canceled at the last minute with a flimsy excuse. My calls would go to voicemail more often than not. It was like my unemployment was a contagious disease, and no one wanted to get too close. The isolation was suffocating. At home, the atmosphere turned glacial. Mark's mockery became a nightly ritual. He'd come home from work, loosen his tie, and find me on my laptop, researching new job leads, or more often, working on my secret project. "How's the job hunt going? Oh, brilliant one," he'd say, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "Still got those pipe dreams floating around in that head of yours?" He had no idea what I was really doing. For years, in the quiet hours after he fell asleep or before he woke up, I had been working. I had an idea, a patent design for a new type of data encryption algorithm. It was complex and I believed revolutionary. I kept it hidden, tucked away in a password-protected folder on my laptop, and in a worn spiral notebook I kept hidden in my closet. I was afraid of his ridicule, terrified he would call my passion another pipe dream and crush the last bit of hope I had left. That notebook was my sanctuary. It was the only place where I didn't feel worthless. The tension in our house grew thicker each day. We were like 2 strangers sharing a space, bound by nothing but habit and a growing, unspoken resentment. The silence was heavy, punctuated only by his sarcastic jabs and my quiet retreats. Then, one Tuesday evening, almost 6 months to the day after I lost my job, things came to a head. I had made a small breakthrough in my design, a solution to a problem that had been plaguing me for months. I was filled with a rare spark of excitement, and in a moment of foolish optimism, I tried to share it with him. "Mark," I started tentatively, "I had an idea about something I've been working on." He cut me off, not even looking up from the TV. "Lauren, I had a long day. I don't have the energy to listen to another one of your fantasies." "But this is different," I insisted. "I really think it could be something—" He finally turned to me, his face a mask of fury. "Could be something? Nothing you do is ever something. You lost your job, you contribute nothing, and you sit around all day playing on your computer. When are you going to wake up and face reality?" The dam inside me broke. "My reality," I said, my voice trembling, "is that I live with a man who has shown me zero support, who kicks me when I'm down, who called me worthless." He just laughed. A cold, empty sound. He stood up, walked over to his briefcase, and pulled out a thick stack of papers. He dropped them on the coffee table with a thud that echoed the finality of it all. "Divorce papers," he announced, his voice chillingly calm. He stood over me, a cruel, triumphant smile on his face. "You want reality? This is reality. Let's see how your big ideas pay for rent now, Lauren." I looked at the papers, at his smug face, and in that moment something inside me didn't break. It solidified. It turned from hurt into a cold, hard resolve. All the tears I thought I had were gone. There was just a quiet, profound clarity. I had nothing left to lose. I stood up, walked to our bedroom closet, and pulled out a single empty box. Silently, I started to pack. A few clothes, my toiletries, a couple of old photographs of friends, and my notebook. The one filled with my diagrams, my equations, my secret hope. He watched me, a flicker of surprise in his eyes. He expected tears, pleading. He didn't expect this silent efficiency. "Where do you think you're going?" he asked, a hint of uncertainty in his voice now. "Away from you," I said, my voice flat, devoid of the emotion he craved. I picked up my box and my laptop bag and walked to the front door without looking back. I left that night. I drove to a cheap motel on the outskirts of the city and paid for one night in cash. I sat on the lumpy bed in the sterile, lonely room, and I didn't cry. I opened my notebook, turned to a clean page, and I started to work. The next day, I found a small, dingy apartment on the other side of town. It had peeling paint, a window that looked out onto a brick wall, and neighbors who played their music too loud. It was perfect. It was mine. The months that followed were a blur of discipline and deprivation. I poured every ounce of myself into finalizing the patent. I took a part-time job doing data entry in the evenings, a monotonous, soul-crushing job that paid just enough for rent and ramen noodles. My days were spent at the public library, using their free internet for endless research. My nights were spent in my tiny apartment, fueled by cheap coffee, refining my algorithms until the numbers and symbols blurred before my eyes. There were moments of crushing despair, times when I lay awake staring at the water-stained ceiling, and Mark's voice would echo in my head. Worthless. The loneliness was a constant ache. But then I would look at my notebook, at the intricate drawings and the carefully constructed logic, and a spark of determination would reignite. Every insult from Mark, every dismissive look from my family, became fuel. Every failure in my code was a lesson. I had nothing to lose and everything to prove. Not to them anymore, but to myself. Then, one ordinary afternoon, after nearly a year of this solitary grind, an email landed in my inbox. It was from a Dr. Eris Thorne, the head of a prestigious research lab at a local university. He had come across my public patent application during a search. He was intrigued. He saw potential. He wanted to schedule a meeting. My heart hammered against my ribs. I read the email 3 times, convinced it was a mistake, a prank. But it was real. Someone, a respected academic, saw value in my work. I went to the meeting terrified, clutching my notebook like a holy text. Dr. Thorne and his team, a group of brilliant, focused researchers, didn't look at me with pity or condescension. They looked at me with professional curiosity. They listened intently as I explained my concept, my voice shaky at first, then growing stronger as I spoke about the work that had become my entire world. They asked insightful questions. They pointed out potential flaws not as criticisms, but as problems to be solved together. They wanted to partner with me, to provide the lab, the resources, the peer review to refine my design and test its real-world applications. For the first time in so long, I felt seen, I felt valued. The collaboration was the most intense and exhilarating experience of my life. We worked for months, tweaking variables, running simulations, and perfecting the design. And then, the news came in a phone call from Dr. Thorne. The patent was officially approved. My idea, the one born in secrecy and nurtured in a lonely apartment, was now a protected, recognized piece of intellectual property. That was just the beginning. The university's tech transfer office helped us connect with venture capitalists. Word started to spread through the tech community. Meetings were scheduled, lawyers were hired. The numbers being discussed were staggering, figures that felt like they belonged in a different universe. I would sit in these sleek, glass-walled boardrooms, in my one good blazer, and talk about encryption protocols and market potential. And then, the valuation came in. A major tech firm wanted to license the technology, and they were prepared to invest heavily in the new company we were forming around it. The deal valued my patent, my intellectual property, at $97 million. I heard the number and felt nothing at first. It was too large to comprehend. I went back to my tiny apartment that night, sat on my lumpy couch, and looked at the official document. $97,000. And then I started to laugh. It wasn't a happy laugh, not at first. It was a laugh of pure, unadulterated irony. The worthless woman, the one with the pipe dreams, was now, on paper, worth more than Mark and my entire extended family combined. A few months later, the new company held a major board event to celebrate the launch. It was a formal affair in a grand downtown ballroom. A car was sent to pick me up. I bought a simple, elegant black dress, the most expensive piece of clothing I had ever owned. Walking into that room was surreal. I felt a mix of nerves and a quiet, solid sense of pride. These were my colleagues now. These were people who saw me as brilliant. As I was talking to one of the lead investors, my eyes scanned the room, and then I saw him. Mark. He was standing near the entrance, looking smugly around the opulent room, a woman I'd never seen before clinging to his arm. She was young, blonde, and wore a dress that was far too flashy. He hadn't changed. He hadn't seen me yet. Our eyes met for a brief second across the crowded room. I saw a flicker of confusion on his face, a look that said, "What is she doing here?" He probably assumed I was a waitress or someone's assistant. Just then, the CEO of our new company, a warm and brilliant man named Mr. Chen, stepped up to the podium. The room quieted. "Ladies and gentlemen," he announced, his voice booming through the speakers, "tonight we celebrate a new chapter, and none of this would be possible without the vision of one person. The brilliant mind behind this groundbreaking patent, the woman whose tireless work is about to change the industry. Please give a warm welcome to our company's founder and the inventor of this incredible technology, Lauren Mitchell." A spotlight found me. The room erupted in applause, and as I started to walk toward the stage, my eyes found Mark again. He was frozen. His smug expression had vanished, replaced by a mask of pure, uncomprehending shock. His face went pale, his mouth slightly agape. I saw his new girlfriend look at him, then at me, her own expression shifting from curiosity to bewilderment. He looked small. He looked irrelevant. I didn't gloat. I didn't offer a triumphant smirk. I didn't need to. I simply smiled. A genuine, quiet smile that came from a place deep inside me. I walked to the stage, shook Mr. Chen's hand, and looked out at the sea of faces, all of them applauding me. Me. In that moment, standing under the bright lights, I realized something profound. My worth was never in their hands. It wasn't in Mark's approval, or my father's validation, or my sister's acceptance. It was in my mind, in my resilience, in my refusal to give up on myself, even when everyone else had. Their judgment, their negativity, it wasn't a reflection of me, it was a reflection of their own limitations. I signed documents that night that secured my independence forever. But the real victory wasn't the money. It was the quiet, unshakable knowledge that I was not, and had never been, worthless. If you've ever been called worthless, if you've ever been made to feel small or insignificant, please know this: your story isn't over. Their words do not define your value. Sometimes the most powerful response isn't a loud confrontation, but the quiet dedication to your own purpose. Sometimes the best revenge is silent success. If this story resonated with you, please like this video and subscribe for more stories of resilience and triumph. And tell me in the comments, have you ever proven everyone wrong? What was that experience like for you? Your stories matter.